Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm glad to be here. There's a couple of old friends here. I've known Michael since the late 80s. Lena is here. Lena is one of my favorite dentists in the world. I've been in medicine 38 years now. That's even longer than some of you. And I grew up in Germany, came here in 1982. I grew up in the field of biological medicine. Dr. Voll was the personal doctor of my family. We lived in the same community, and Dr. Schimmel, who developed the Vega test, was a very close personal family friend. And we shared, Dr. Schimmel and I shared a bit of the journey together. He was the first physician of those who do energetic testing, who realized that by using electric currents, you're missing half the story. And half the story of what you actually need to have for diagnosing somebody has to do with light. And I want to introduce you a little bit to some of the knowledge that's behind that. And for those of you who are young in this field, give you some options. I'm very aware that, when I learned the sun remedy in the 70s, there were like 5 major remedies, and it was really easy to use. And then for whatever reasons, now there is like 500, and it's gotten so complicated that if you enter this field, it is very easy to give up in the beginning because it looks so damn complicated, and it actually isn't. But the way out that most of us, all the guys, have chosen is to learn some form of energetic testing where we can, if there's a choice of 50 things, so within 2 or 3 minutes we can nail the one remedy that's the one that's going to help the patient. And I'm going to lead you there, and actually Terry has given me enough time graciously that I can present the material and then do a little demonstration. Because my testing, I started with the Vega test and then on to Mora and then went on to the American machines. All my instruments are sitting with the FDA now in the headquarters somewhere on the East Coast. I took it as a sign from God. I am a Christian. I kind of said, okay, what are you trying to tell me? And what I took out of it, well, why don't you try to work without instruments? You've got a good brain, you've got good hands. And so I went on, I learned Nogier's pulse test, and then went on, when I came over here, learned applied kinesiology. Actually here in Phoenix, I took my courses with a very brilliant chiropractor here, Mark Force. Some of you may know him. I don't know if he's still working on it. He was about my age. And probably retired by now, like most chiropractors retire as wealthy business people or real estate people. So I don't know what happened to Mark. But I took the 100-hour course in applied kinesiology and then sort of went on to combine the different techniques, what I've learned from Paul Nogier, what I've learned from Schimmel, Voll, and what I learned from applied kinesiology, and combined it into one tool that doesn't require any batteries, because I realized there was the threshold for the FDA. When there's a battery in it, somehow they feel they're entitled to it, they really own it, and it's a gift if you're allowed to keep using it. And so I went from using instruments that use current to just using my hands, and I will show you the progression and the thinking that's behind it. And so here's a bit of a list of tools that I use. If it's possible to get a laser pointer, I'm kind of feeling lost if I don't have a laser pointer. Not that I really need it. The first set of tools to find a remedy that is listed here in the US context, there's 2 major developments. One is applied kinesiology. The muscle testing, everyone has a notion of what that is or may look like. And however, there was a parallel development. Dr. Omura. Dr. Omura is a brilliant surgeon who used to be an engineer before coming to this country. And he was the one in the 70s who introduced acupuncture anesthesia in New York as a scientific method of exploration. He served actually on the medical board in New York for many years and developed, an independent of Woodhouse development, a completely different school of muscle testing using the fingers of the hand. You know, he's called it the bidigital O-ring test. And as it turns out, it is the only patented anesthetic testing technique in the entire world of medicine. Yeah? Nothing else has been patented in terms of, you know, the technique and the skill and the philosophy behind it. Dr. Omura was a very influential teacher of me. In Europe, there was an independent development. Dr. Irfan Asher is a brilliant osteopath in Belgium originally, friend of Dr. Hammer, you know, and then he moved to Spain and then from there to Vienna. He developed an arm reflex test and an arm length test to find the right remedy in people. And Nogier, I mentioned him, developed a pulse reflex. It's a change in the maximum at the peak of the pulse. It moves either distally or proximally depending on what you put in the field of the patient. And then, of course, dowsing really has very, very deep American roots. There's been an American Society of Dowsing since the 1700s in the US. They meet annually in Vermont. It's a meeting I recommend for everybody. It's a fantastic coming together of deeply spirited people. It's in Danville, Vermont, always in September when the trees turn color. It's one of the most influential meetings I've ever attended. And then body talk is one of the many techniques where body talk uses the simple tissue changes. You put a remedy in the patient's field and the tissues either soften or harden. We tested all the techniques and looked at which, you know, in simple issues like diabetics, you know, who could find with their technique whether the person is diabetic, when we knew they were. And then secondly, if they're diabetic, what's the treatment? Do they need insulin? And if so, how much exactly? And the only technique that came close to it, there were two techniques that could actually get within 5 points of the insulin, was Dr. Omura's O-ring test, and was my technique, which comes out of putting all the techniques together. Mine is called Autonomic response testing. It's listed down here, yeah, where we can come within very, very fine degrees of objective measurement of reproducible tests. So then there is the instrument assisted by, I don't think you can see this red point, so I'm just giving early up on this one. There's the instrument assisted biofeedback. The electroacupuncture, according to Dr. Woll, here now renamed as EDS, electrodermal screening, has also FDA reasons why it was renamed. Hardware variability, I know Alex is here, Alex Riftin, who really was a brilliant genius from Russia who brought this technology in a doable way over here. I know there was, you know, at the time when Alex started lecturing on his little computer-based version, which we all started immediately using as an 8-minute test that gives you beautiful information. At the time, the College of Cardiology, everybody fought him, and they were still doing 24-hour measurements, and then you had to send the measurement in, and 6 weeks later you got the test results back. And Alex made an 8-minute test where you had the results right there. It was developed in the submarine program in Russia, and you brought that over here, and it's brilliant. And however, it's limited the information you can get from it. Then the thermography, there's been many stages, and we'll go into it in my talk. Dan Beelan has now updated the equipment. He's here. It is wonderful equipment. Oh yeah, there you are. Yeah, so it's the latest, bestest, and it's fantastic. We have it in the office as a supportive method that can show immediately where the patient has a trouble area, and where you can also document very quickly if what you did has worked. It doesn't predict the medicine that you need to give, but it shows you the most accurate before and after any method. Then I studied psychology after medical school and was involved in the German lie detector protocol program. I was always broke. That hasn't changed much. And As a student in psychology, I volunteered in all these different programs where we would get paid, and I was in a lie detector program for 2 years where we looked at all the equipment worldwide that was there, and there's an amazing similarity between the most advanced biofeedback equipment and lie detector equipment. In fact, there is no difference. It's just the name and how it is marketed and who it is used by. And so the interesting thing is if you buy an inexpensive lie detector, you pay about 1/10 of the price of what you pay for inexpensive EAV equipment, for the same technology. So it's just an idea, for some of you who want to, do a low budget thing. You can pick them up on eBay and other places, where the ex-CIA agent or so sell their stuff that they don't need anymore. But it's a doable technology that gives us a lot of information. Okay, in autonomic response testing, I will do a demonstration at the end what that is. It's a bit of a philosophical model that I just like to just briefly brush on. So this is from the old yoga tradition, where it is congruent with modern science that we have the physical body, but the physical body is surrounded and penetrated by the forces of physics that are created in the physical body, our electromagnetic field that extends way beyond the physical boundaries. And there is an interaction of this field with the physical body. And we'll get into that briefly, the biophoton field and the things that are known about it. The energy body is also the level where we have feelings. There's also the idea where the nervous system belongs on this level, but also more esoteric concepts like the aura, the chakras, the nadis. They're all phenomena of physics that are surrounding and penetrating our physical body. And the interesting thing is that all the energetic testing techniques are on this level. Whether you measure with anything that has a battery in it, by definition, either heals on this level or assesses diagnosis on this level. And then there's a level above, I call it the mental body. That's the invisible structure that surrounds us, that is really the storage container for everything that we've ever learned, but also all the traumata that we've suffered. And there's an interaction of this higher levels with the lower levels that I will briefly brush on in a moment. And beyond that is the intuitive body, so the realm, past lives, near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, and that type of experience, level of experiences belongs to. And beyond that is another level that I simply refer to as the spirit. Now, there is, when we get ill, it is always assumed that where the symptoms are, that they can go straight from the symptom to the cause of the symptom. But there is this strange phenomenon called downward causation and all the esoteric traditions that when you have a trauma that's on any of these higher levels, it will find its way down to the physical level. On the physical level, it's like a display panel that then expresses the hip pain or the heart problems or the biochemical problems that we have. But very rarely is the cause of the illness on the level where the illness is. And this is sort of a mistake that conventional medicine has done, that it usually fails to treat illness on a causal level, which is good business, because if you treat like inflammation in a joint, as inflammation in the joint, you have to give an anti-inflammatory for the rest of the life of the patient. There's a lot of money to be earned, and that industry has become like a mammoth, that is squishing all other knowledge. And you're all aware of that. And so with the energetic testing, it is possible to at least go one level up from this to look for causes that are not on the physical level, maybe on the electromagnetic level, such as the exposure to cell-phone radiation, electromagnetic fields, magnetic fields from the Earth, but also derangements of internal ways that we are guiding our energies, our electric systems can become deranged easily through trauma, through experiences and so forth, and then create illnesses on the level down in changes in our biochemistry. And so the energetic testing has the advantage, it gives us information on one level up from the physical level, plus we can conclude from there, make deductions what's going on the physical level. Like I said before, with my system, we can determine the insulin level that somebody needs within 5 points. But we can also deduct what's going on the higher levels, and do work on those levels. I do a lot of work on the psychological realm. I also wander off very often into the intrauterine time period. There is called the Baker hypothesis, that many of the illnesses that we express later in life are set in motion when we're in the womb. And that is very well documented now. The changes in epigenetics, they have a 20, 30, 40-year-old delay time, and then we get the hypertension or the heart disease or the insulin resistance, and everybody thinks it's a diet or lack of exercise or lifestyle, but you can track it down. It really was the mother was traumatized when she was 3 months pregnant with you, and that is the reason why you have your heart disease now. And so we're tracking that every day with wonderful, wonderful results, and it was only possible through the energetic testing to be able to ask the body the subconscious questions. The conscious memory starts when we're about 3 years old, but the memory in the subconscious goes all the way back to conception and even beyond that. And we need a different tool. We can't do it with lab work. We can't do it with x-rays or imaging techniques. We have a different tool to get there. And so with a different tool, we can get much deeper into the causation of illness. And we've done that and practice it every day. I have a wonderful practice. It's called Sophia Health Institute. I have 6 doctors working with me. They're very well trained, and we do this work every day, and it's wonderful. I just want to give a little bit of a taste of that. So, any of the energetic tests that I know are based on changes in the autonomic nervous system. Every test, the EAV, the electroacupuncture, you measure skin resistance. When the body is in stress, the sympathetic nervous system fires, and the little bubbles under the skin that contains the sweat glands fill up with water. You get wet hands when you're stressed. When the stress is healthy, when the stress is chronic and permanent, they become dry. But in acute stress, you get wet hands. That means if you measure the resistance that the skin has to current, it goes down. When you relax, it goes up again. And so by measuring skin resistance, we can, with the EAV equipment, determine whether a system is in stress or no stress. And if you, for example, put a piece of bread in the hand of the person and they go in a stress response, you can safely conclude that they are allergic to it, or non-compatible, or all the other stupid words that we have to use now to avoid the word allergy, because it may not raise IgE, so whatever, I call it allergy, I name, if I see a frog, I call it a frog, even though it may have some other Latin name. And so, the only thing we can do with any of the energetic tests that whether you use a pendulum, whether you use EAV, whether you use muscle testing, whether you use the Noget pulse test, is to see if you do something, if the patient's system goes into stress or moves out of stress. That's all we have. And based on that, there's these different belief systems, different ways of structuring exams that are, nice seeing you. So I've traveled this road for a long time, and everybody who's done this kind of comes up with their favorite tool. Each one of the tools are an extension of our own system, and so I don't ever judge anybody for for doing this tool versus that tool. It's an extension of us. Some people like Apple computers. I like Macs so far. I like the IBM system because it's more German. It's more. I don't like the creative stuff. Now I'd like to introduce you to a phenomenon that I encountered that was a big teaching experience. A patient came to me with severe asthma. She was declared dead 3 times before she came. by having done dental interventions, and she knew she was allergic to local anesthetics, and then whoever dentist worked with her believed he had the new type of local anesthetic that would never cause allergic reactions, and as a result of that she ended up declared dead 3 times, had to be resuscitated. That was before she saw me. So she came to me to find out which local anesthetic she tolerates, because she had a mouthful of amalgam, she had severe asthma, amalgam needed to come out. And so I was up against that issue, what local anesthetic to find with my muscle testing. My test system was put to the test. And so she was in this room, I tested her with my muscle testing, and I sent my assistant out to get the tray with all the different local anesthetics on it. And we heard the footsteps outside the door. And when she came about within, 6 feet of my door of the room, my patient, her asthma came on. And the assistant came and said, go out, go out, go out. She went out with the tray, and asthma stopped. And we could double line, triple line this. There was a line 6 feet out. Here's the treatment room as she lies here. Here's the door. And 6 feet outside the door was the line within an inch that we could mark. And she would cross the tray there with the local anesthetics. My patient got the asthma attack. And the patient was otherwise a normal patient. I know she didn't have abnormal physiology or abnormal kind of sensory experiences or anything. She was just a normal John Doe, run-of-the-mill patient. And so I figured out at the time, which has turned out to be correct, that we have an energetic system that goes way beyond our physical body, and this actually has sensory elements in it that can actually sense its environment and already palpate the environment, is it safe or not, and give a stress reaction or not. And then, when that was very early on in my career, and then when George Goodhart and his applied kinesiology, people had to put stuff in their mouth to test it, because he said holding it in the hand doesn't do anything. Well, guess what? None of the chiropractors that I know followed him. They all secretly kind of, put stuff in the hand. He was not allowed to see that until his death. He did not allow people to test any other way other than putting it in the mouth, because he knew the pathway from the tongue to the brain and then to the body. And so when I had this experience with the patient, it was clear to me, energetic testing does not require that you put something in the body, you can just put it outside the body. And we developed that into a system that's a bit more sophisticated than putting stuff in the hand of the patient. And I'll show you how that goes. A good example that is very well known, sharks can detect the prey's electromagnetic field 30 feet away around the corner of a rock with specialized fibers in the autonomic nervous system. And recently there was a publication that showed that we all have the same fibers. They're just not trained like the shark. Our life doesn't depend on it anymore, but we all have that. So those of you who go swimming or scuba diving, if you think, okay, you're looking around, you can't see the shark can't see me either. He warns. So, what are we testing? Okay, in applied kinesiology, we do many different things. We test dysfunctional organs simply by pushing gently on an organ that's ill. It will create stress, and the person goes into stress response. If you push on a healthy organ, the body says, oh, this feels really nice, it's like a massage, and the body doesn't go into stress response. So with a system, it's very easy to find out where the body is dysfunctional or already under stress of some sort. Now, we developed a way by realizing there is also stuff outside the body that we can test. We can test actually areas of disturbance in the field around the patient that are very, very significant, and I will lead you into that. And since our system is the only system that I know that does it reproducibly, something you cannot do with EAV or you cannot do with any of the other techniques, people that work with the pendulum or with dowsing rods can also do that, but we'll show you how that goes. The thing that we found, I'll give you the solution first. We found that all the inner organs are represented in a plane around the body, around 1 foot away. So almost like an anatomy atlas, where the 3-dimensional liver is represented in the field in a two-dimensional plane, exactly the same size, a foot out, and we can actually test away from the body and get information what's going on in the liver that is far, far deeper than what we could do by EAV testing or testing on the body. I'll show you that later how that goes and why that is. And there's another area, it's about 80 centimeters away from the body, where the cell wall is representative of all the cells in the tissue where you are. And I go further out and I find the mitochondria, the DNA there. So the further out I'm testing in the field, the deeper in I am. And we map that out very carefully using good science and develop a testing method that allows us very quickly, within 2 minutes, to test out what the mitochondria are doing, whether there's Lyme disease in the cells or in the matrix or in the nervous system. We can identify bugs, we can identify toxins, we can identify chemical dysregulation and all that. And it's very, very simple. It just took a while to get there. One last phenomenon before it kind of gets a bit more interesting is that what we call the direct resonance. That's something that Dr. Umura detected. When I take a sample of healthy liver tissue and hold it in the field over the patient's liver, the person's autonomic nervous system responds with the pleasure response. It is a strange phenomenon. You hold liver over the liver and the body goes, the pulse rate goes down, the person goes in a state of mild euphoria. You take it away or you put a piece of kidney over the liver, the body goes in a stress response. And he calls this direct resonance phenomenon. There's a resonance between what you hold in the field and what is in the field. This has allowed us to very accurately find places in the body where, for example, mercury is stored. Or we need a little bit of mercury and hold it in the field in different places and see where the body goes into the pleasure response. And we know there's mercury in the body in that place. It's a far more effective test than we got with any of the other energetic testing methods. So I'll demonstrate it at the end. So briefly, what are we looking for? Well, like I said, we have these different levels. So on the physical level, in general, we look for toxicity, we look for biochemical deficiencies, we look for structural problems. Toxicity in general, is most of the toxins we're dealing with are internally created by the microbes in us. Okay? The toxins coming in from the environment add to that. The insecticides, pesticides, and so forth. Actually, the main one that we're finding in people now, way beyond mercury, is Roundup. From recent studies, that there is no one of you who doesn't have their fat cells filled with Roundup. Roundup is a carcinogen and a neurotoxin, and it has taken over mercury in its significance. When some of you know me from the old days, 20 years ago, when everything was mercury, now it's Roundup. Everyone is filled with it, and it's just depending on your genetics and the other good things that you do, how you're containing that. Very often the reason when we have obese patients why they can't lose weight is their system is simply, it's the best adaptation the system knows how to do. When they lose weight, they're flushing the system with Roundup that's bioactive and kills you, and so the system doesn't allow you. So people go on these starvation diets and do all things, the HCG diet and this diet and that diet. They're not losing one gram of weight. That's always the tip off. One thing that safely removes that is liposuction. But the better way is the combination of sauna therapy and detox modalities that support the body and getting the stuff out. Anyway, that's the physical level. So we look at those three things. We look at structural problems, we look at biochemical problems, and we look at toxicity. On the next level up, the energetic level, we look largely for biophysical stress, and that's really, next to Roundup, the other conundrum of our time is the incredible exposure to microwave from the constant bombardment of us with the cell phone radiation. We had 3G until now, that's 3 gigahertz. That's a wavelength that has been shown to be carcinogenic. It's been known all the experiments leading up to it. The government worldwide still accepted it. The government got $25 billion for selling the 3G band to the public. And now it's 4G, which is even more destructive. It's coming. And some of us are more sensitive than others, but it's affecting all of us, and it's taking the joy out of life. It's the first thing that happens is the low-grade depression that everybody has now from the constant exposure. And so we've developed ways of protecting against that, and tomorrow I think I won't be able to get into some of the simple solutions for that, how to fortify your system against that, and how to protect. And they're not based on bullshit, they're based on real hard science and some core things that we know. Then the other thing that some of you know I used to be famous for is the German neurotherapy. Neurotherapy is based on the theory that scars and traumata that you've had to tissues leave the tissue in an electrochemically different state that will cause illness elsewhere in the body. And simply by injecting the scars or tissues with procaine, you're reversing the normal electrochemical parameters. The tissue heals, and the distant illness, or whatever, the shoulder pain, or the headaches, or the liver dysfunction simply normalizes. And so we do a lot of that. Michael Gerber here is, one known for his neurotherapy, especially in the pelvic area. And he's one of the gurus. I know there's others here in the room, and one appeal I have to you, the best way to use the sun remedies is to inject them into those places. It's just a quantum leap above giving them any other way. And so I teach that in workshops. I have a table out there, Academy, Klinghardt Academy, simple injection techniques, but they teach you how to use those things in ways that are what's called an off-label use of the remedies. Allergies are, all of you know, they're important. They're probably overrated. If all you do is allergies, okay, fine, it's good, but allergies, usually the allergic tendency people have is caused by the pollution, by the stresses, by other things. And when you correct the other things, the allergy tolerance goes way up. And the allergy that does not go away, our experience is the gluten intolerance. Now the latest studies on that is that 80% of North Americans are gluten intolerant. Not to use the word allergy anymore, but gluten intolerant. That means no more beer, no more grains. And it's just fantastic when people know that most of the other allergies are secondary. The gluten allergy is a separate animal that's usually not treatable with NAT or any of the other techniques that you may know. And then the big one, of course, is the mental psychological level, where unresolved trauma in the family or in your personal life sets the stage, and we know that now, for epigenetic changes. The way your genes are transcribed is permanently altered through trauma that you've had somewhere down the road. And so then there's all the functional medicine people and all of you guys that do the vitamin pushing thing, kind of approach. There was a trauma, it changes the epigenetics, and now you have high cholesterol, and you have insulin resistance, and you have all these other things, and you can treat that, and it's good business. Bad business is when you actually go back, you deal with the trauma, you resolve that, when your cholesterol and the insulin resistance, all that changes. And so we're trying to be practical with this. It's not always possible with every patient to do the deep interventions, because not every patient is open to it. Sometimes it's like going into Fort Knox, so I'm breaking down walls, and I'm not going to do that. The patient needs to be ready. It needs to present in a way that say, hey, I'm ready to do what you got to offer. But it's fantastic to include that into the treatment early on, and it saves a lot of money for the patient later on. Okay, now I'm talking a bit about the light body. Okay, cells give off biophotons, they give off light. You know that cells communicate with light emissions to each other. Light doesn't suddenly, light doesn't go and suddenly stop and drop off. Yeah? When light is created, it goes and it goes and it goes. And so the light that's created in our body leaves the body eventually and creates a field around us. generally referred to as the aura. Each healthy tissue, and this is now, I'm cutting out a lot of biophysics here, but each healthy tissue polarizes this light in billions of adjacent, parallel, vertical, sagittal planes. I make that very simple for you. The light that comes out of my body, if I'm healthy, comes out in sheets like this, next to each other. This is a sagittal plane, it's vertical, and it comes out this way. The light is actually places where there's no light, but this is billions of sheets of light that come out in this way. And it's polarized. That means the light, they're all parallel to each other. My entire light body has this parallel light emissions. And the wonderful thing is that Dr. Popp found that struggling or unhealthy cells lose the ability to polarize light long before the client becomes clinically ill. And so in my technique, ART is now entirely groomed towards finding the places where the body cannot polarize light. And I'll show you how dead simple that has become. It's a 30-year process that resulted in a $60 tool that's not driven with a battery, where we can very reliably find places where the body has lost the ability to polarize light, where the cells are disorganized, desynchronized. There is many other terms that I'm avoiding right now because I want to keep this simple. So here's from Alex Gray a picture. All the esoteric tradition, all the people that are a bit clairvoyant, see the light, and it's funny. It's a two-dimensional picture, but the light comes out in sheets very carefully polarized. Now this is the perception of somebody distorted by LSD. Yeah? So it's not the true picture, it's close to the truth. Yeah? But the light comes out in sheets like this. And so here's a bit from the research. This is Dr. Popp's research. What he did, this is minutes here on the scale, 1,000 minutes, 1,700 minutes. He took some grains, and the grain here before number 1,000 this year is the amount of light that the grain gives off. This is grain just simply photographed in a biophoton chamber. That's a dark room, completely dark. There's no light coming from anywhere, but the grain being alive gives off a constant level of oscillating light. Then at this point here, it's irreversibly poisoned with a gas. They're adding in a gas that kills the grain. And in its death, you see the grain emitting light, and then it slowly dies. Yeah? And then there is a very high level of light emission that goes on for quite a while until it's completely dead, and then there's no more light given off. Yeah? That's the process of death. And I'll show you at the end of this talk, I show a picture of the patient. When a patient dies, how that looks like. This is a reversible poisoning. Again, this is only seconds here, 250 seconds. Here the grain is poisoned with Staphylococcus aureus D5. Yeah? Staphylococcus aureus D5 is a poison. Yeah? So it's mildly poisoned. And you see how immediately the grain responds by giving off its light, and then gradually comes back to normal. This is a patient of mine that we photographed with thermography. It was a couple of years, it was 20 years ago. We had a place in Texas where we did our experiments, and as you see, I inserted some acupuncture needles in the stomach meridian on the left side of the body. But what you see is the lighting up of the stomach meridian on the contralateral side. Now, this is infrared light given off by the body. The body gives off light, and now the light, the biophoton field, is the entire spectrum. A large part is in the UV range, but we don't have a camera. Yeah? But we can photograph phenomena in the infrared range. This is a patient who had a root canal in the upper jaw. I think it was the second premolar root canal, and he had a huge thyroid dysfunction. And so I took a photograph of him, and you see here this line. This is a lack of light emissions. This part of the body has lost its ability to polarize light, to create light to start with. There's no light coming out. It's a cold temperature. And here's from a friend of mine, the late Dr. Schlebusch, who worked with me for many years on this. This is, again, acupuncture needles in the low back, in the bladder meridian, and you see a lighting up of the bladder meridian, meaning the bladder meridian gives off in polarized infrared light as a response to the needle stick. This is a guy, he was a long-term patient of mine. He was an airline pilot in the Second World War, was shot down by my dad. He was shot down by the Germans. And he was actually nicely, broke his neck in the procedure, but actually was nicely taken care of the Germans. They treated him, they braced him and did the whatever neck traction or so, and they handed him over to the Americans when they came. But he had lifelong severe pain in the neck, and I photographed that. You see nicely that this is an abnormal light emission that the body gives off as a response to chronic trauma. I treated him with prolotherapy and traction, and he got well. I lost the photograph somewhere in the course of time of him. But now I want to explain the polarized phenomenon before I do my little demonstration. So a polarized light means light can, a single photon can, it's an electromagnetic phenomenon, behaves like a wave, and that wave can go like this, it can go sideways, it can go at an odd angle. And polarized light means all the photons that go through here have to be going up and down. There can be a single one that goes sideways that wouldn't go through here. And a polarization filter, which is the main tool I will show you in a moment, it looks like this on a microscopic range. It's a round glass thing, I have it here. It looks like this. Some of you know from the cameras, these are not available anymore. And it has, in this distance, has about 1 million invisible iron rods in it, and between glass, the light can go through. And it's marked, there's a mark here, so I know the lines go in this one, go this way. And so what I will show you, if I put this on a healthy body part, with the lines correctly aligned, and the body part is healthy, the muscle testing will show me a pleasure response of the body. If I hold it over a body part that has lost its ability to polarize light, there won't be the pleasure response. As simple as that. And I can measure the degree to which it's dysfunctional. And I'll get there. So this is the polarization filter. It's a linear polarization filter. Unfortunately, they're not available in camera stores anymore. Everybody went to circular polarization filters, which you can't use for this. And so Debbie is back there. Debbie has this academy where she found the source of it, she has them. Those of you who ever want to play with them. And then the second development that we use is the signal enhancer. It's a particular plastic that has an absolute perfect mathematical crystal structure. Each molecule of the plastic has the exact same spatial orientation and distance to the next plastic molecule in it. It's a perfect crystal. And what we found is when we put a substance on this one next to the body, that the body behaves as if it's eaten that substance. It's a one-to-one relationship. We had to figure out the size of this. It's a mathematical formula. If it's this size, and I put, let's say, a cherry on there, the body will behave as if it's eaten that cherry. If I put 10 insulin units on there, the body will behave for about 15 minutes as if it's gotten a shot of 10 insulin units. So it's a one-to-one relationship. So we call these things signal enhancer. It's different from putting something in somebody's hand where you don't know anything about doses. You still may know if there's a response or not, but you don't know what the situation is. So this is a repeat of what I already said. By testing on the skin, like most people in kinesiology do, or in EAV, we're really only testing the ectoderm. Your skin and nervous system are related, the embryonic layer of ectoderm, and we get information from that tissue. If I test about a foot away from the body, I get the information of the mesoderm. It's the muscles, the joints, and the matrix. The holy grail of alternative medicine, the matrix. We're testing a foot away from the body. And the endoderm and the deeper tissues start out here. And I'm going to do a demonstration in a moment, you'll see that. So this is the exciting picture I want to show you. These are the light emissions. Here, these little bars are light emissions measured over the hypothalamus representation area of the brain in a dying patient. It's a patient dying of glioblastoma in the moments before death. And the actual moment when this patient dies is this moment here. There's this moment. And the moments after the death, you see this huge amount of light emission, and then nothing. Yeah, that touched me. I was there when we did the research. Was one of my patients that I was willing to give in to the experiment. And so we knew that before from some of the other esoteric. We had a professor of parapsychology in Freiburg, Germany, who studied medicine, who did the same experiment with much more primitive equipment, showing that when people die, that there's a ball of light that comes out of them, that actually hovers in the room, sometimes for 2 days, 3 days, and then disappears, and he photographed that. But he died in the late 70s, and all his studies have magically disappeared within a year of his death. All the documentation of that. You don't know who, what. Okay, now I have no timekeeping device here. I need to see how much time I have.
25 till.
Okay. So, is there any question before we do a little demo? Christine, would you come? Christine is my office manager and my assistant. She's also a doctor. It's one of the very, very powerful docs that work with me. So the difficult thing is ask somebody to come as a volunteer. We're not going to do anything bad to you. We're not going to inject anything. Would you come over first? Yeah. I'm just showing how the testing goes and how, I'm going to slow down the process a little bit. So is it okay with you lying down? It's not a comfortable. It's not a. No, I think it's okay. You checked it out before. No, have your head here. So I want to say one thing first. The muscle testing I use is modified after Dr. Omura. I could, the normal kinesiology is that I use the patient's arm. That's all good. But how about if the patient is paralyzed? Or how about if the patient has a neurological disorder where the muscles just don't work? So Dr. Omura created the science behind it for the indirect testing. Indirect testing looks like she touches the patient just do that. And I use her arm. Now she's somebody that we've cleaned up over the years. She's metal-free, she has nothing bad in her body, or very little. With a few exceptions, she's reasonably clean, and she has a very well-functioning nervous system. And so I use her as the instrument, but we're not introducing any batteries, currents, or man-made electromagnetic fields, all of which distort the system that we're measuring. If you use EAV, you're already distorting the system that you're measuring by introducing a current into it. And so it's called indirect testing. We're conducting the field changes in a system through her, and making it visible through her arm. So we call this calibrating, shooting in to find the right level of strength. I should explain with the pull filter what I'm doing. Okay. Now I take the pull filter and I just palpate her tissues. Go over her eyes. Her eye is not correctly polarizing her left eye. Her right looks better. I can go over the jaw joint, the sinus in the upper jaw. There's a problem there. The side that's less. The thyroid testing, but all on the left side. That's Lachasis, it's that remedy, the left-sided snake venom remedy. Hope you'll feel it. So I can do this, there's one way of testing, and also in the pelvis to getting that the light isn't coming out in planes like this. And I can sit up and go, down the spine. An easy way is this, again, it's a strange phenomenon. Some of you know the ear, has the representation area of all the organs. It's called a complete organ representation, sort of it's the liver and the point for the eye and blah, blah, blah in there. And then different schools of acupuncture found also an organ representation area in the eyebrow, in the nose, in the hand, the Korean hand acupuncture. And there's organ representation areas everywhere. On the penis there's one, not joking. What Raphael is this brilliant doc in Vienna, that when you put a black ring on the body, he did that experiment with somebody who had very acute hepatitis, and he was playing and he put a black ring on the patient, on the belly, and then palpated for the points and realized there was an extremely tender point. He stuck a needle in the liver pain went away. He took a black ring away, it didn't work. The pain was back immediately, put the black ring on, it was there again. So whenever you put a black ring anywhere on the body, it forms inside an organ representation area, a complete one. But suddenly you have a point for the eye, for the nose, for the kidneys, and so forth. Take it away, the phenomenon disappears. It has to do with holographic mathematics and all that. They did some research on that, how that could be. But we took that simple phenomenon, and the pull filter, has a black ring around it, and by actually placing them on the signal enhancer, doesn't have to be on top of her head, but it is there right now. There is a representation of the whole body forming in there, and I get a read of how our whole body feels, the summation of all the emanations, how they are. And they're not bad, even though I find details where there's problems, but overall you're looking pretty good. I can grade this by turning this, so that you get about a 60-degree angle here. So you're not bad at all. And then I can also use my hand to simply cover areas, and the biological field of my hand will block her light emissions, and I can see where she's weak. It looks very much, this is now the normal, the weak arm is normal, and I can look and see what I find this way. I'm going to push on the eye, I get also the test. On the sinuses I get a test. On the left thyroid, actually I think it's a vascular issue, it's above the thyroid. It's not the thyroid, it's just a little higher up.
How do you discriminate the sinus from the teeth?
Right now I don't, but I would carefully, I'm going to go quite carefully, so that it's definitely the maxillary sinus. Then I can go to the teeth, and I would palpate the teeth now and see if one or two of the teeth are sending bad light emissions out of the system. So that's the first part of the testing. So I know there's, maybe a little sinusitis going on. I know it's probably affecting your eye. It would be my theory, but there is an underlying vascular thing here that's CCSVI. Some of you know CCSVI, the venous restrictions that people get in chronic Lyme disease. They get inflammation in the veins and narrows down the veins, and the outflow of the blood from the brain is compromised. And I think injection of mucocil would be great, from time to time, or bring mucocil ointment in there. Here in the sound context, we have other things that are probably stronger. We use bee venom ointment. Bee venom ointment is wonderful, vasodilating and actually killing the bugs that live in there. But I want to take a few other things. And then that's the first layer. So we would find corrective remedies for that to make the test disappear. Show them all. We have a few here. I didn't bring everything, but we have a few. And then comes that next layer. Now testing the matrix, and that's where it really gets more interesting. It's a deeper tissue. And then we see around the brain, that there's something, a phenomenon that I know I want to correct. The rest of the way looks good. But around the brain, I could speculate now what your symptoms may be. We don't know each other, but I would speculate, brain fog, short-term memory. I would ask those questions, levels of bliss, happiness, sleep, insomnia. I would palpate for those things. But all I want to know, would you mind just putting your hands there? We can do a thing now called two-pointing, and then go in the sinus. And when she holds the sinus that tested before, this phenomenon disappears. When I put two things that test bad in relationship, I know there's a cause-effect relationship. And either the thing in the field is causing the sinus problem, or the sinus problem is compromising her brain. Makes sense to me. I would treat the sinuses and see what happens, And then I go to the deeper tissues, and we see also here, deeper in the brain, there is something going on. I can scan the rest of the body. And also see as on the lower abdomen is also something that is quite right. So go back on why don't you hold your the left sinus? I just want to see if it's the same origin there, and the same here. So she really only has one problem. She has a low-grade sinus thing. I do need to look at the teeth. Do you mind just opening just wide? Mm-hmm. You got anything bad up there, root canals, implants, anything?
Just a little bit of gold left.
Just a little bit of gold, okay. So now I use my sanum knowledge, sort of my favorite remedy. I think we don't, only we do have. I can try out different things. So introduce like the different remedies now and test, this is Nigazan, Clionique, what's it called now? It has changed names so many times. Clionique, and we see that immediately kind of wipes out the whole thing, and I'm really finished. She's a Nick type, and I could then add in the supportive remedies that Thomas Rao talked about today. I would, in this case, we do neurotherapy. We have a certain pattern of injecting it around the sinuses, and I would predict that even she may have felt really well today before coming here, she would even feel better, that. But I would treat like any cancer that way, any, an ingrown toenail, and cancer for us is all the same. We look for what shows up. And I show you now, like when I work without this, let's take this away. When I work without this is a conventional way of doing kinesiology, but also EAV testing. Cannot do this. It doesn't go into the light field. It doesn't give me that information. When I do the conventional testing without the pull filter, I can look. The tonsils are testing. And the gut is testing. It gives me a completely different set of information. And then I could go through whatever, and let's see what happens here when I put the Nigasan, let's hold it here with the left hand. When I know where it needs to go now, because from the other test. Once you go there, when I do that, the tonsils disappear. The gut disappears, everything disappears. However, I'm pretending now I'm an EAV practitioner, right? I didn't do that first test, I don't know about the Nigasan. I test her, tonsils are testing, the gut is testing, and I would be now on Thomas Rao's gut program. I would put on 50 different things, for the gut to get the gut well, and put on colonics and do all the other things. And when I actually put let's say this is an EAV machine, and I put the Nigasan in, it doesn't change it. It doesn't test on this level. It's a higher level, it's a higher order of things when I work with the light level. I come up with one remedy that nails the patient. I know I'm going to put you on there for a year, come back in a year, and there will be major, major changes in a good direction. Everything else is under this, and I can't, with EAV or with the common kinesiology, I cannot get to this higher level where I can see what's really behind it. So that's really what I wanted to show. So the sound remedies work, but they work better when you inject them. And so for you as a compromise, if you're not wild on injections, I recommend to put the nick up the nose, like 3 drops or so, 3 times a day, each nostril. I like bigger amounts. And I think, really, I could maybe show, we have other ways, the other thing I want to show you, for the heavy metal diagnosis, most of you know, okay, when you're Nick type, Nicholson type, you also tend to accumulate heavy metals and other toxins. So here's my heavy metal tester. It's a fever thermometer. One of the old ones that are slowly being outsourced, is it not allowed anymore. And so the way I test if she has mercury in the body is simply by doing this. I'm interested intracellularly first. I'm not interested, I'm also interested, if it's in the central nervous system, I can test it here and I can test it here. I want to know if it's in the matrix. Let's look in the matrix first. And I'll find it in the small intestine area, not in the liver, but in the heart. And some in the brain, in the matrix. Then I can find my remedies that kind of would address that, and I kind of look intracellularly deeper inside, in the head area, we're getting some intracellular. It would be the same for pretty much everybody here, and that allows us then to scout out, then putting remedies in, and I can promise you, with EAV, you cannot reach there. It's not possible. The cells are like Faraday cages. You cannot get with EAV inside the cell. Dr. Schimmer tried, he tried by, in his later developments, by combining with biphoton reading equipment. But you cannot get with the applied kinesiology, you cannot get in the cell. You cannot get in the cell with EAV. Maybe with the dowsing rod, maybe with the pendulum, maybe with the intuition. But this is very solid. There's solid science behind this. I do this, I know, and it's not that difficult to get it out. It just takes a long time. That's the secret of mercury. If you want to, in the break, you can ask Christine what we do for the intracellular mercury. I'm not promoting any of my own products here, but we have a very solid way of getting out, very gentle, but solid way. Thank you very much. It was an honor having you here. Thanks. So I'm going to use the last 10 minutes. Maybe there's some questions. So otherwise I talk more.
And we'll use the microphone in the middle of the room there again for the questions. I did have a question though, Dietrich.
Oh yeah. Let me say one thing. The one technology that I like, I mentioned before, Dan Bielen's, thermography. It's a wonderful way of these patterns that they identified that can also suggest the deep level heavy metal toxicity. And one of the mobilizing instruments that we use is the Tesla lights that are out there, has been turned out phenomenally effective in shaking the tree. And it's sort of like shaking a Christmas tree and the needles fall down. The Tesla lights are wonderful to get metals on the move. Anyway.
You were indicating that you can measure the state of the milieu, the matrix, using this technique. And then when you moved on toward identifying a specific problem, you matched a remedy to that particular problem. Can you do the same with the milieu and modulate?
Yeah, we can test this against the matrix, we can test remedies, we can sit and find the...
So an alkalizer, Theocitros, Sandovis, etc.?
It's helpful to have the Sanum theory down to a degree, but you can go by textbook, and then test alongside the textbook. Textbooks, the book from Krebs and other people are very accurate. The work that Thomas Rao is presenting is very, very accurate. So you can't just take that as a recipe and then plugging in the testing will make it foolproof. The trouble is with the theories and the recipes given to you, half the time they don't apply to the patient, and this sorts that out. But once you actually, she's the plionic, and then everything that we know about Niga-san, the supportive remedies and all that is true. So let's talk a little bit about Roundup. So Roundup is the most sprayed insecticide. It's marketed by Monsanto as harmless, has been shown to be a very severe neurodegenerative disease-provoking agent, and it's in all of us. So the way we diagnose is just the same way as here. We just take, I bought some Roundup. It's like for $2 you can buy like a little bottle. It's very inexpensive. And we drew up a little bit with a syringe, put it in a container, just 2 drops, and add water to it to make it more realistic, like the dilution that would be similar to the one in the body. And then we do that same test. And so we find Roundup in everybody. In terms of the detox, well, the most important agent is glycine. The amino acid glycine. It's a teaspoon twice a day. Glycine has also emerged as way underrated as the anti-aging compound. But glycine is part of the enzymes that are needed to detox glyphosate, to speed them up. And a teaspoon of glycine twice a day also makes the skin look younger. It gets rid of wrinkles. It's great for the collagen synthesis, but it's an important part of the glyphosate detox. Then we make in the office homeopathic glyphosate in different dilutions and test out on the patient which dilution is important. We do the laser detox with it, Lee Cowden's laser detox. Those of you who don't know Lee Cowden, he's an important player amongst us old guys. He developed a detox, instead of giving homeopathics, you just put them in the laser. I have that here, the contraption that we make. It's this one here, I use UV light, it's an ultraviolet laser. When I put any remedy in here, or mercury or Roundup, and I paint your body with it, you will sweat out Roundup for the next week or 10 days. You will be toxic to anybody close to you. And it's as simple as that. Rather than giving it, we only use the laser detox. I know you do too, in the office. So there was a big breakthrough in our field that when we work with toxins, we just simply can put them. I perfected the idea a little bit because we don't need to make vials, so we can just put the thing in here. And this is a contraption that conducts the light into the laser field without having to do the vials and all that. You just put it in there, you paint the body, and the UV light, I would say, is times 100 the effect, compared to the red laser. Amazon.com, $20.
What is it again?
What is the name?
UV.
Yeah, it's 409 nanometers or so from Amazon.com. But be careful with it, because this can backfire on you. This is a huge mobilizer of toxic crap by doing this. The treatment is about 30 seconds front and 30 seconds in the back. Patient needs to be undressed as much as possible. And the distance to the patient is important. The further you're away, the deeper the treatment. The closer you're to the patient, the more superficial the treatment. So that's a little bit on sauna therapy. So we do sauna therapy, the homeopathic glyphosate, ideally in the laser, or we give it sometimes for long-term treatment when people come from far away. We do the glycine. And I load people up with chlorella. Chlorella is now shown to very, very significantly bind glyphosate once it's mobilized in the gut. So we do those 4 things. Thanks for listening.